article, good. Large. Adjective, verb. Noun, again countable. Dive. Verb, infinitive. Into. Preposition, the. Definite article. And water. Uncountable noun. Okay, very good. Have a look at this sentence. Have a look at these words. And with your partner, decide what parts of speech these words are. So just like we've done together, decide what parts of speech these are. So for example, Manchester is a noun, it's a proper noun, right? It's got a capital. So with your partner, decide what the other words are. Okay, have you decided on the parts of speech? Yes? Great. So, I'd like you to choose 9. So draw this table. 9 parts of speech. Listen, don't write the words on the left. Write the parts of speech. For example, you know that "at" is indefinite article. So in one of your spaces, you can write, if you want to, indefinite article, or definite article, or noun, or countable noun. So in your 9 spaces, write one of these parts of speech. You've decided what the parts of speech are, so put these in a table now, please. Okay, so this game is called lingo, okay? Instead of bingo, it's lingo, because it's about language. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out some of these parts of speech. When you hear one of the parts of speech that you have in your table, cross it off. When you get 9, when you cross all 9, shout lingo. Number 1, uncountable noun. So if you have uncountable noun, cross it off. Number 2, modal verb. Number 3, verb infinitive. Number 4, past participle. Number 5, conjunction. Number 6, preposition. Number 7, pronoun. Number 8, proper noun. Number 9, auxiliary verb. Number 10, present tense verb. Okay, so that was just a short warm-up. You can use that to revise grammatical terms with your students. So the things that we're going to look at today are, we're going to discuss first about our feelings towards grammar. I'm going to show you what I consider to be some effective ways of teaching grammar, and then you're going to put these ideas into practice. If at any point you have any questions, please stop me and ask me, okay? You can ask me any questions throughout any of the workshop. So, please read these 5 statements and discuss with your partner or partners which one is closest to how you feel. Okay? So read the 5 statements and discuss which one is closest to the way you feel about grammar. I'll give you a couple of minutes. So I'm going to give you a little bit longer to answer these questions. Again, with your partner or partners. What is grammar? Why do we need to learn grammar? How do learners learn grammar? And what are effective ways of teaching grammar? So please discuss these. Can you understand what I want? Yes. Okay, so then there's something more that grammar gives us. What does it give us?
We should learn grammar so that people can understand what we are talking about in accurate context and tenses.
Very good. I think you hit the nail on the head there. You got the word accuracy, okay? So, of course you can understand if I go like this, but you might not understand that actually what I want is an apple, okay? Or a red apple, or something, okay? So, grammar helps us to communicate, but it helps us to communicate more effectively and more precisely. So it helps us to understand and to be understood with accuracy, as you said, sir. Let's think about question number 3. How do learners learn grammar?
First, the learners will learn the rules of grammar, and then they practice in writing, and in the last step, they will practice in practical in daily life, like speaking.
Okay, so they learn the rules, and then they practice writing, and then they practice speaking. Step by step. Is that what you were saying? Yeah? Okay. Any other ideas? Well, I think that learners need 4 things in order to learn grammar. Well, firstly, students need to notice the item when it is being used. They need to notice it in texts, in stories, in conversation. We can't expect our students to learn something the first time that they see it. They need lots of opportunities to notice it. They need to be exposed to different grammar points over and over again. Yes, they need to be explicitly taught it, but they also need to notice it in the texts that we give them, be it listening, be it reading. Number 2. Very good. Students need to understand the form of the item. So they need to understand, for example, how it's made, how the pieces fit together, what are the endings, etc. So they need to understand its meaning, its form, and its use. We can help them understand this by giving them typical situations in which the grammar appears. This is mainly what our textbooks do. What about number 3? Train. That's good. Any other ideas? Think. They do need to think. That's very true. It's not the word up here, but they do need to think. Yes! I don't know who said that, but it was coming from over here. Yes. Try. As well as noticing, as well as being exposed to the language, as well as understanding it, of course, students need to try it out in a safe environment. And what is that safe environment? The classroom. So they need lots of opportunities in different situations to try out the grammar. Very good, okay. Use. Students need to use the language in productive skills, so in speaking and in writing. They need opportunities in different situations. They need to be encouraged to take risks. So in a lesson, we would move from controlled practice to freer practice when teaching the grammar. So, this was our last question. What are effective ways of teaching grammar? So far, we've learned that we want learners to be exposed to a lot of language. We want to help them to notice that language. We need to focus their attention on specific items so that they can understand what they mean, the form, how they're used. We need to give them a lot of opportunities to practice the grammar, encouraging them to try things out, to take risks, to use the items when they speak and write. How can we do that? Well, that's what the rest of this workshop is about. So I'm going to show you a range of grammar techniques designed to get you thinking. As we go through these grammar techniques, think about how you can apply them in your classes, and not only to the grammar points that I use, but to different grammar points. So I'm going to show you, and I want you to think wider. Think about different grammar points. Think about your classes that you teach, the different levels, your different students. Could you use them in class? Would you use them in class? So just be thinking about this as I show you some different techniques. Here is what we'll look at. Using pictures, creating imaginary situations, using the students, text-based activities, revision activities, and ideas for the use of English pages. You know, the exam pages, the double exam pages and solutions. I'll give you some ideas for using those as well. So let's start with using pictures and situations. Okay, so there are two people. Who's this? Where's Colin? At home, okay? Who's this? Barbara. Where's Barbara? At a party, okay? What are Colin and Barbara doing? Okay, they're talking on the telephone. Barbara speaking. Hello, Barbara. How's the party? Hi, Colin. It's great.
Hello.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm at the party.
Oh, how is the party? Is it very good?
Yeah, it's great.
So in this activity for using pictures, you can show your class a sequence of pictures and get them to recreate the story. What's this? Washing machine. What's this? Okay, dirty clothes. Okay, great. And who's this? A girl. Okay, let's give the poor girl a name. Let's call her Joan. What's Joan going to do? She's going to put the dirty washing where? In the washing machine? Okay, let's find out. Okay, so Joan puts down the washing next to the washing machine. Then, what happens? She heard the phone and she went into the living room. Let's find out what happens next. While she was talking, the cat came into the kitchen and, okay, good. He came into the kitchen and he got into the basket. Joan came back, she put the washing into the machine. But when she came back later, she saw the cat in the washing machine. With your partner, we're thinking about past tense, past simple tense, okay? With your partner, tell each other the story. Retell the story. So, in class, I would elicit the practice, in this case, the past tense. What other grammar points could you use with these pictures? Past simple we've just done. Anything else? Past continuous? Okay. What else? Good. Future in the past? Okay. What about if you show one picture at a time and you say, what will happen next? So you're using will for prediction. Okay? Will for prediction. Or you could show the pictures backwards. So you show this picture first and think about cause and effect. So what has happened before? Okay? A great activity to do is information gap activities. So students working in pairs with different pictures. So still using pictures, but maybe student A has a picture and they have to describe it to student B, who draws the picture. Here is a really good website for information gap exercises. There are literally hundreds of these to download for free. Boggles World ESL. Have you heard of it? If you haven't heard of it, it's on your handout at the end, so don't worry about writing down the website address, but it's got loads and loads of free resources and a really good section on information gaps. So we've thought quite a bit about using pictures. Now, we're going to think about creating imaginary situations. So in an activity like this, you set up short imaginary scenes in class to provide students with memorable contexts for learning new aspects of language. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2014 Olympics. We are going to choose the Asia High School Olympic champion. Pretty good? Very good at balancing. Do you do yoga? Yes, you do yoga, I can tell. Ooh, a bit wobbly there. Trin, right? Okay, Trin, very good. I think you can stand on one leg. And finally, contestant number 3, that's me. Let's see if I can stand on one leg for a minute. No, I can't stand on one leg for a minute. Okay, let's do challenge number 2. Contestant number 1, please stand up again. Can you balance this book on your head? And walk. Walk up and down here. See if you can do it, okay? Contestant number 1, you can balance the book on your head and walk. Let's try it. Contestant number 2. Very good, contestant number 2. Excellent. Let's see if contestant number 3 can do it. No, contestant number 3 can't balance the book on her head. Okay, so this is the language that we are looking at in our imaginary situation. Contestant 3 can't walk with a book on her head. That was me, right? And contestant 2, Trin, can stand on one foot for a minute. In the first sentence, which words are stressed in the first sentence? Read it to yourself and think about which words are stressed. Let's have a look. So we have contestant 3 can't walk with a book on her head. And let's have a look at the second sentence. Contestant 2 can stand for a minute. So those are the words which are most stressed. What do you notice between the difference between the first sentence and the second sentence? So if we look at the first sentence, it's the negative auxiliary verb which carries the stress. Can't. In the second sentence, it's the main verb that carries the stress. So getting your students to notice these kinds of patterns as ways to teach stress. Obviously, looking at can and can't. From here, you would teach your students, write this on the board or have it on the projector, the full sentences. Can you stand on one foot for a minute? Can you walk with a book on your head? And then the short answers, yes I can, no I can't. Working on the pronunciation and the stress. Together, as a class, you could then brainstorm more challenges. Okay, so for the Asia High School Olympics, what other challenges can we do within this room? So we've got stand on one foot for a minute, walk with a book on your head. Think of maybe 4 or 5 more challenges. And then, in groups, they can recreate the imaginary situation. Using, of course, the target language. Having practiced the stress, the intonation, the proper pronunciation of these phrases. So creating imaginary situations gets our students using the target language in an entertaining and fun way, which hopefully ensures that they will remember it. So now we're going to think about how we can use our students. This activity is an example of a sort of short language puzzle. So short language puzzles, problems and games can be used to review the language that our students have studied. So this is more of a revision or a review exercise. Of course, these are particularly good for analytical learners. I'm going to give 14 people a piece of paper, okay? If I give you a piece of paper, please don't show it to anyone else and come and stand at the front, okay? Again, if I give you a piece of paper, don't show it to anyone else and please come and stand at the front with your piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to start at the back. Okay, this is one sentence, okay? This is one sentence, but we need to get the words in the right order. So listen carefully to these words, and then we're going to try and put them in the right order. So please just say your word. Do you want to hear the words again? Yes. Okay, let's listen.
Chicken.
Wanted. Grandmother.
Me. Feed.
Ask. But. The.
To.
You.
I.
To. Phone.
Okay. This is going to be the start of our sentence. Who do you want at the beginning? Which word do you want at the beginning? My? My. If you're my. Next word? Okay, so we have?
My grandmother.
Chicken.
Wanted. So now we have?
My grandma wanted.
Chicken.
Yeah? Who's got me?
My grandma wanted.
Me. Chicken.
Two. Who's got two?
Two.
My grandmother wanted.
Two. Me.
One meter.
My grandmother wanted.
Two. Chicken. Me.
Wanted me.
My grandmother wanted.
Me. Two. Chicken.
Wanted fish.
Feed. My grandmother wanted.
Me. Two. Feed. Chicken.
Thank you. The. So we've got
My grandma wanted.
Me. Two. Feed. The chicken.
ask. But. Who's got but? Okay, great. But. I? Okay, let's try.
My grandma wanted.
Me. Two. Feed. The chicken.
But I asked you to phone.
Me to
Phone.
the chicken.
What? My grandmother wanted me to phone the chickens? How about we start with I? Who's I? What we got?
My grandmother.
Me to
Phone.
the chicken. Feed.
Do you know the correct sentence, anyone?
I wanted to phone you, but my grandmother asked me to feed the chicken.
Okay, can you get that order? Again? What's the answer?
I wanted to phone you, but my grandmother asked me to feed the chicken.
Okay, this is a nice idea as well. So, you could say one sentence and then somebody else could continue the story. Okay? Shall we try that way? Okay, so you do the first sentence.
Suddenly, a dog chased after me.
So we have yesterday.
My mom wanted me to buy something for her.
My mum wanted me to buy something for her.
I bought a gold ring.
You bought a gold ring, okay?
Suddenly, someone knocked over
over.
Knock me over, okay? I fell. Fine.
I rocked my arm.
I broke my arm.
And the thief got The thief took my ring and kept it and then ran away. Ran away.
Okay?
I chased after him.
I chased after him, okay?
But I couldn't catch him.
But I couldn't catch him, okay?
The thief jumped over the fence.
Thief jumped over the fence, okay?
Fortunately, another boy followed him. And he caught him.
The thief was not.
And finally he got off. Yeah?
Finally, he got off, okay? Just take that around here. Then what happened? I found it.
I feel terrible. I feel terrible. I look at my golden ring, and it was my unforgettable memory.
Okay, a good group combination of stories. This is my story. Yesterday, I went to the market because I wanted to buy some oranges. I bought the oranges, but unfortunately, I knocked over some watermelons. The watermelon fell onto a box. The box broke. Inside the box, there was a chicken. The chicken escaped and ran away. I chased after the chicken down the street, but I couldn't catch the chicken. Then, the chicken jumped onto a bus. So there are different ways of doing this. You can do one sentence at a time to take the pressure off your students. Or you can ask your students to produce a whole story. Okay. This next text-based activity is called a dictogloss. In a dictogloss, you raise learners' awareness about differences between their own evolving mental grammar and the target language. Please listen to a short text that I will read you. Don't write anything, so pens down, please. Pens down, no writing. Please just listen. 3 men were stuck on a desert island, and a fairy came along and offered them a free wish each. I wish I was back home with my family and friends, said the first man, and in a flash, he disappeared back home. I too wish I was back home with my family and friends, said the next man, and he too disappeared. very lonely here, said the last man. I wish my two friends were here with me. Okay, please write down any words or sentences or expressions that you remember from the text that I read you. Write down any words or phrases that you remember. Compare with your partner. Compare the words that you have with your partner and add any new ones. Okay, pens down. Pens down. No writing. Listen again. 3 men were stuck on a desert island, and a fairy came along and offered them a free wish each. I wish I was back home with my family and friends, said the first man, and in a flash he disappeared back home. I too wish I was back with my family and friends, said the next man, and he too disappeared. Very lonely here, said the last man. I wish my two friends were here with me. Okay, again, amend the text and try and write as much as you can of the text. So, once our students have tried to recreate the whole text, you would then elicit the text from your students. Maybe ask one student to come and write the first sentence and then the second sentence, etc. And you would compare their text with the original. Once you have compared with the original, you would ask your students to underline all of the examples of wish. This is our target language, wish. Do you notice anything about the use of wish?
The man walked up after wish, we use the past simple.
Okay, so we use the past simple after wish. When is the wish happening? Is it happening now or? Okay. It's happening now. So we use the past tense for present wishes. So we're guiding our students to notice this aspect of grammar through a dictogloss activity. A last text-based activity is sort the sentences. An activity like this is again a guided grammatical discovery. It highlights the differences between related structures and draws attention to the patterns of language. If I was doing this in class, I would give my students the sentences cut up, okay? So that they can physically move the sentences around. I'm just going to show you our sentences on the board. So, what I'd like you to do is in pairs or small groups, look at the sentences and sort them out into groups. There can be as many or few groups as you like. Okay, let's have a look at the sentences. So, please put them into different groups. There can be 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, as you like. Sort out the sentences.
I put 9 sentences into 3 categories. The first one is the conditional type 1. We have sentence number 3, 4, and 8. For the conditional type 2, we have sentence number 1, 6, and 9. And the last one, the last 3 ones is conditional type 3.
2, 5, 7, right? Great, thank you. That is one way of sorting the sentences. You can put them into conditional types. So first conditional, second conditional, third conditional. You could also just sort them into 2 groups. So you'd have sentences 3, 4, and 8 as real conditions, and 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 9 as unreal conditions. So we're asking our students to notice the patterns of the language, but also to think about the meaning. So discussing why you put certain sentences into certain groups. Our last text-based activity is grammaring a text. So the idea is to develop our learners' understanding of how grammar helps fine-tune the meaning. This was about accuracy that we were talking about at the beginning of the workshop. So you would give your students a text like this and ask your students to add in the grammar. There are many different ways of doing this. Just with your partner, think of a way to make this a story by adding grammar. Recreate the story by adding in grammar. Hey, thank you very much, Joanne, that was great. The stories will be similar, but there are different ways of adding in grammar. What I would do is I'd ask my students to do this exercise and then swap with another person or another pair and see if they can peer correct each other's grammar. Obviously for a slightly higher level of students. So you can do some peer correction and then some full class error correction. For this activity, in your groups, you might have to move a little bit closer to each other. How much money do you have? No. How much money do you have? How many tens do you have? How many tens? How many tens? Okay. How many 50s do you have? How many 100s do you have? How many 100s? How many 20s? Great. Okay. So, I will show you a sentence. You bet money to say whether it is right or wrong. If it is wrong, you should write the correct sentence on a piece of paper. But don't let the other teams see the correct answer. I will check your sentence and ask you to make a bet. The minimum that you can bet is $10. The maximum that you can bet is $100. If you are right, you double the money that you bet. But if you are wrong, I keep your money. Okay? So, sentence number 1. Remember to keep this in your groups quiet. So, in your groups, decide if this sentence is right or wrong. If you think it is wrong, write the correct sentence on a piece of paper and decide how much you want to bet. You've had a lot of experience with life. Please count your money. Do you recognize these pages from solutions? Yeah? Do your students find them interesting? Do you give them to your students for homework? Well, these are really, really important pages, okay? Why? Because they're teaching our students the skills that they need in order to pass exams, be they the internal end-of-year exams or international exams. All of these are good training in skills. I just want to show you, we don't have time to do them, just show you a couple of ideas for making these exam pages a little bit more interesting for our students. So, first of all, this is a reading exercise where our students must insert the sentences into the correct part. So usually, your students have 5 sentences, but they only need 4 sentences. So what I would do is, instead of asking my students to do it like this, I would give them the text with a gap for the sentences. Then give them the sentences cut up and some glue, and ask them to physically stick the sentences onto the paper. It makes it a lot more interesting for our students, okay? So cut up the sentences and leave gaps in the text. In this activity, so students have to fill in the gaps with the correct form of the word. So this first sentence says, living in a foreign country can be an exciting and reward. So you want your students to get the word rewarding. What I would do is give my students the sentence, the paragraph, but divide it into sentences. So they have 1 sentence at a time, okay? They're working in groups. Each group has the alphabet, so all of the letters of the alphabet, obviously with some extra letters, cut up. You give each group 1 sentence, and it's the first group to make the correct word out of the letters. So they're physically making the words together. Again, it's a really good competition to keep your students interested in class. In this exercise, from the use of English, students have to decide which word, A, B, C or D, goes into the gap. Okay? These words are quite similar. So, for example, we've got make, making, makes and made. What I would do is I would not show students the text. What I do is I put all of the words, like this, into a Wordle. So these are the words at the bottom. I ask my students to create groups of words, okay? So you want 4 words in one group, and there are 10 groups. So in this Wordle, you can see, for example, making, made, makes, and make. So you're asking your students to group the words together. Before you show them the text, they group the words together, and then they talk with their friends about the difference in meaning between the words. After that, you give them the text, and hopefully they'll be able to do the exercise a lot easier. Any questions? All of the activities, or most of the activities that we've looked at today, come from 2 books. Either this, Oxford Basics, Teaching Grammar, or this grammar book by Scott Thornbury. So these are very, very useful resources for you. On your handout, you have all of the information and all of the activities that we've looked at today. So, I hope that these have been useful, and I hope that this will bring some excitement to your grammar lessons. Thank you.